Hello and welcome to another episode of Run Till You're Done. This episode's guest I have known for a wee while online, but I've only just had the pleasure of meeting her in person after her epic 10k run in Orkney, where she went on to complete the double dare and came second in the half marathon as well as the 10k. She's a phenomenal runner with an amazing story, which we're about to hear. Welcome to the show, Emma Coffey.
Hello, nice to see you again. And to meet you right properly as well.
Yeah, welcome. Start off with the question that we ask all our guests is, how did you get into running?
Yeah, well, from a young age, I know this will, most people say that they got into running through lockdown, but I was actually a member of the Orkney Athletics Club as a youngster. And I'm proudly saying I wasn't actually that great at the distances, because obviously you run shorter distances as a young person. I then broke away from the running scene, as an early kind of teenager, went through to the hockey club, started university, and basically never ran again for a number of years until I fell pregnant with my first child. And it was just a way of getting out, getting some fresh air and keeping fit, and then joining the local community where I was living at the time, post birth. Just again, that headspace, isn't it, after your first child. So there's always been a bit of a sporting background with myself. I've always dabbled in quite a number of things, but I found that, I don't know what was running, I just seemed to take a natural progression into. And then, it's like you start in the community Jog Scotland group, and then the first race happens, and the next thing you're absolutely hooked.
So that's a nice segue on to the next question, which is, what was your first race?
So my first race, it depends what era that you kind of go into, doesn't it? I would say when my first race was the Scottish half, actually, and this was, pre-Rory. So we're talking a number of years, because my mum had phoned me and had said, right, I'm coming down to Edinburgh and we're going to do this race together. And I was like, yeah, that's fine. I've not done a half marathon. That was my first race, obviously. And I'll do some training. I was doing CrossFit at the time, and I think I did about 3 training runs. I didn't train, that would be the idea. And mum phoned me and was like, yeah, I've got an injury, so I can't do it. I was like, oh, so I do it myself. So ran it, did a 1:41, I think, of my first half. And then sort of mum was like, that's actually quite good for somebody that's not trained before. I didn't really take her on, if I'm in all honesty. I didn't take her on at all. And then fast forward, then it was always there simmering away. It must have been because I did a number of running events when I was at school, and up in Orkney we had an event called the Hoy Half Marathon, but obviously as a youngster I couldn't do it, so we did a lesser distance, and I would be coming in first or second most years. But again, I never really thought of it anything seriously at all. It was more just, I could run, and just did it for sheer enjoyment, or my mum just put my name in because she was doing the half, so I just had to do something too. So
If you were doing 1:41 to begin with, what kind of time have you gotten it down to now?
I have gotten it down to the 1:24 mark, which I did at the Kelpies last year. However, I think there would have been probably more in the tank if I had a bit of a better training season with it. I haven't had a good year this year compared to 2024, which I think, I know that, going off piste on the questions, I think it's quite important to note, I've had successful years and successful races for somebody, with a family, 3 kids, full-time job, but I've definitely entered that sphere of, things aren't going quite according to plan.
And have you, you've gotten it down from 1:41 to 1:20-ish. Do you realise yet that you're actually quite good?
I'm okay. When people ask me about it, I just say I'm okay. Do you know what? I was speaking to Nikki about this at the Orkney event, that actually for somebody that doesn't wholly focus in one particular distance, I seem to dabble quite well in most distances, which I think is unique to individual runners personally. So I'll use that as my claim to fame.
And as we were saying earlier as well about going off piste on the questions, here's the first other side question that I now have. You mentioned that your mum runs. Has she been your influence in getting back into running?
Yeah, well, I think when you've got an active parent, it always helps you get in things. You're like, oh my goodness, if my mum's running with her running friends, like surely I could be doing something as well. But I do take quite a lot of inspiration just from watching athletics on TV. I just think it's amazing. And the more interested you get into running, the more invested you become in the trainers, the fueling, the nutrition, people that are running. And I think a lot of it comes from people that are just like us. No, it doesn't necessarily mean be running the Diamond League as a season, but people that are out there that are very, very normal. And I think your more normal individuals probably get more of a kudos in a way because they're not full-time athletes. They're just doing what they can with the resources. And I always make the joke, when people ask me, oh, what do you run in or what's your fueling strategy? I was like, oh, it depends on my bank balance at the time. It's, they do say you can go out and running with a pair of trainers, and that is completely true. And that's what you're open to. But as I mentioned earlier, the more invested you become, the more interested, and your knowledge deepens as well. So you start to try out new things.
Yeah. You mentioned earlier that you did CrossFit. Do you do any other cross training, and how do you think that affects you?
So it's something that I actually talk about with my coach and with my physio husband, which was always handy to have in the background. And I like a walk bike. I quite enjoy a couple of hours on that if the time allows. And, it's easy, it's accessible. And it also means that you're not leaving the house, which is always handy. And I don't mind the odd swim. I used to swim as a child as well. So I can swim, I can ride a bike, and I can run. So they're not all bad sports to be able to cross train. And I think as I've gotten older, and I mean, I'm not saying that I'm absolutely ancient here, but I am creeping towards that 440 that I feel
that's positively ancient.
That's so old. But I feel like I'm taking a wee bit longer to recover, and pounding the pavements does have such an impact. So I think it's something that I'll be speaking more with my in coach, who is Jimmy Endurance, that maybe it's something that we should look into, if I could do a bit more cross training, as I'm just taking a wee bit longer time to recover between big sessions. I'm really fortunate that we actually recently moved as a family, and we're now living in, the Stirling area. So the fact that I get to go to Stirling University, use their track, use their swimming pool, it's on your doorstep. So why not use it when you can?
Yeah, two questions. You mentioned a watt bike. How does that differ than a standard exercise bike, or is that like hooked up to Swift or anything like that?
Good question, because I've absolutely no idea. I mean, if any of your listeners could help me out with this one. It is just a piece of equipment that I know that my husband uses Swift with it. Is that it? Swift? Yes. Yeah. Uses on it, but I just use it just to turn the legs, and we've got a wee TV set up as well, which means I can get into that. Although, I mean, the fresh air probably wouldn't hurt, but from a watt bike, I think there's just a wee bit more pressure with it as well.
Okay.
That's a great question, Mike. And if any of the listeners can answer that for the three of us, we'd all be interested.
I'm just like, popping in these like little watt bike and these notions. I don't even know the answers to them myself.
I said I had another question, but I've totally forgotten what it was. So
it wasn't a hard one I could answer, so maybe a blessing.
I do have a side question as well. When you say as well, when time allows, you mentioned that you're a mum full-time working. This is something that I do like to ask a lot of parents that come onto the podcast. How do you carve your time out for your training?
Yeah, that has been a bit of a game changer since we did the move, because we now have space to put in the watt bike as well as my running machine, which I was gifted. And that allows me in a way to train earlier in the morning without leaving the house, essentially. And I do believe a lot of parents are able to do this. But at the weekends as well, I think my husband does triathlon and I do obviously from marathon, ultra running. Oh, and just, add in a 10K and half marathon there as well. We're pretty good at communication of, right, I need to have this amount of time and and then we fit that in. But I've also found if I've got, my eldest is 6 and then the twins are 4. So my 6-year-old is going to quite a number of activities that might be an hour long, but you don't need to stay as a parent anymore. So you often see a sort of flurry of parents literally dump their children over to the activity and then they're in their running kit to get that quick hour popped in. So that's really worthwhile. So I do find early in the morning to get over and done with, communication with my husband of what he needs to do and I need to do, and then training at the same time as our eldest usually does help with carving out time. But you just have to be so disciplined, and because if you miss that window of opportunity, there's no going back on it. And as you know, like the time that you've done the dinner, bath and bed, it's 7:30, 8 o'clock. The last thing you want to be doing is going out for a run in the dark.
Yeah.
Excuse me. So that's probably top tips of being able how to get out. I am fortunate that I do have the ability to do my training like where I live.
You mentioned that your husband does triathlon, but
yes,
you swim, you cycle, and you run. So
yes.
When are you doing a triathlon? That was the question that I forgot.
That was the question. So, I won't lie. I think the more that you watch things on TV, like Lucy Charles Barkley, and a few of those interesting triathletes, they do give you some inspiration. And my sister and brother-in-law have recently completed an Ironman. And then my husband announced that for his 40th, he would like to do an Ironman, but it wasn't a he, it's a we. And I was like, oh. Yeah, I don't know. I would be lying if I say I didn't look into it. I have looked into it. I haven't sort of jumped into it yet. She says yet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So sorry, Mike.
No, on you go.
I was going to say, before we go back onto the official question set, I do have one more side question. Do you have a favourite running distance?
Yeah, I actually really, really enjoy the marathon and ultra distances. That's, the kind of halves were just because of the Island Games, which I'm sure we'll talk about later on, and competing for Orkney within that. But I do like the longer, and I just feel that is where my strengths lie. So when people talk about triathlon and it is an endurance sport, I feel like I get better as the run gets longer.
Mm-hmm.
Which is daft, isn't it? It's like, what? It gets better as it gets longer. But I feel like I sort of warm into, I kind of enjoy the pacing of it. And I know when I speak about the ultra running, my pacing is reasonably good. For, you've got your ultra runners who race it, and then you've got your ultra runners who wish to get through the distance. And I think I had, that marathon is even still quite fast for me. So we'll see how the ultra distances go.
Kind of off topic, but I'm going to squeeze it in just because it's on topic right now. Currently, Big's Backyard Championship is happening as we talk. They're on yard 100, and let me just get it clear. It is 102, I think they're on right now. So you're saying that you get better as the race goes on.
Yeah,
so have you ever
there's
thought
no
about...
way, no, absolutely not. And I have a very good reason for this. My reason is with the twins and being that sleep kind of deprivation for so many years, that's what actually puts me off doing anything like actually doing that to my body. So I know that's counterintuitive in a way, but I feel that for me is like an actual punishment rather than enjoyment. All I'll hear is like Hamish screaming in my ear for hours on end if I tried something like that. But I'd be that stubborn that I'd be like, oh well, I'm obviously going to finish it. So, or keep going. So you're your own worst enemy, aren't you? So I have thought, when we spoke about distances, the one thing that I have never done that I would eventually like to tick off would be that 100-miler.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, just finishing off the talk on backyards, got to say congratulations to Sarah Perry, who is now the women's world record holder. I'm wearing a Rasselbach t-shirt, and we raced against each other in Rasselbach a year ago. But yeah, well done, Sarah. Your answer, I didn't hear a no. I just heard a not yet.
And that's what I heard as well, like, and you know what, Emma, see when that midlife crisis really hits and the kids are older.
No,
When
there
I
is
out
no
the
thank you.
house older.
Yeah. So see how you moved to Stirling. That's not far away from Perth, and the Scottish one is just north of Perth, the Highlander. So we'll talk about it later. And you moved away. There was one in Orkney as well, but I think they're not sure that they're continuing with that one. It's not been on for a few years.
There was an email that was sent out. I know the organizer that said they weren't doing it again, and it was funny because I actually had somebody Instagram me and be like, oh, they were so annoyed because they were like, oh, we're going to do it. But with the Island Games, like a lot of events were on hold. So I know it's probably a way for people maybe to step back if they didn't want to continue it, or, you know, re-enlighten some things. The St Magnus Marathon that is up there in July, it had a year's break. It'll be back for 2026, which is really quite popular amongst those that like hills, wind, probably some rain in there as well. Yeah.
And torture.
Yeah. Do you know what? I would say that running in Orkney is incredibly difficult for those of you. Yeah, it's so hard.
I live about 50 meters from the coastline, so I get the full force of the North Sea wind. So
all the time.
It's just like living in Orkney. So
yeah.
I know how you feel. Right, back on to the question set. You talked about various races, and you said that your favorite distance was sort of marathon, ultra, longer races, and you're hoping for 100-miler. But do you have a particular race that is currently your favorite? Because you haven't done a 100-miler yet, so you might either love it or hate it. But currently, what is your favorite race?
I really enjoy the GB Ultra setup. The Glasgow to Edinburgh was absolutely fantastic. And I think part of that is because it's familiar. It's flat. Yes, I am a road racing flat kind of gal. You won't catch me up on the Pentlands, that's for sure. And that's a definite no, not a not yet, before you say anything. And I think because it just allows people to, it's just really friendly with different terrain. And I've spoken about that before, even though it's flat, you're going through like countryside, the urban, and really getting a feel along that canal. But the first year I did it, I think probably would have been my favourite, even though that was the Noah's Ark year of the torrential rain where everything got cancelled apart from Glasgow to Edinburgh. And I just remember staying at my brother-in-law's the night before and being, good God, what am I thinking? It was absolutely pouring. It was the middle of the night, well, 5 o'clock, you're getting up, organised, and it's pitch dark. It's so wet. And basically your feet are wet within 2k in, and you're like, oh goodness, I've got a long way to go. And I think that's probably my favourite because there was a lot of, naivety behind the distance. It's very easy to say 56 miles or 93k, but actually when you run it, when you get to Falkirk, the kind of halfway point, and I say this as a kind of advice to anybody, the marathon is the warm-up, and the second marathon is actually your race. That's grit, determination, maintaining your feeling. Is there anybody even around you? Most of the time there's not, because the field has massively spread out. But I actually just thoroughly enjoyed it, because at the time of running the race, I had my husband, my father-in-law, and my son crewing me. And, to have that little person shouting at you like, go mummy, after having a really tricky year with the twins and their premature birth, I think there was a lot to be said to an individual being like, oh, wow, I can do this. And I think I always send that to a message, when you start at the start line with a lot of ultra runners, you find that ultra runners maybe don't necessarily just run because they enjoy it. They usually have a backstory. And it's been quite interesting to meet people that are maybe doing it for charities, or they're recovering from alcohol and drug addiction, or like myself, you're running for that mental health space because, you know, your twins, your children were so premature that, you know, they were fighting for their lives. There's no reason why I couldn't run a mere distance. And I think that's where, when people talk about mental grit, I think you need to have a certain degree of that to do ultra marathon or ultra distance, I should say.
You said you're a road runner at heart.
Mhm.
I assume that you don't like, well, you say you don't like the hills. What about trail? Is that off the books as well? And the other question was, what are your thoughts on track racing?
So trail, a light trail would be quite nice. I think the reason for the hills is nothing against the hills. Love the fresh air. However, the time to go out the house, and this is about managing the time when you spoke about earlier being a parent, is that you then have to probably go to your distance, so you're carving out more time to get there. And honestly, I have an absolutely awful sense of direction. Like, it is so bad. So therefore, I don't trust myself up on a hill to navigate my way anywhere near it. So that's why I stay well away from the hills. And for track racing, I have never completed a track race as an adult, but I thoroughly enjoy watching track racing. I think it's really quite fascinating for somebody to train that hard to get to a level where they are for such a short period of time. Like, you're sitting here as a ultra runner or marathon runner, and you obviously have a peak that you want to get to, but these track races for those people are kind of have to be on it a little bit more because they're racing more frequently.
Yeah. Well, you say for such a short period of time, but just putting it out there, you can do 100 milers on the track.
Well, you can if you really, really want to. And who is Sophie Power loves to talk about her track. Yeah, I mean, I'll stay well away from that as well. I'm really putting myself out there for things that I don't sound enjoyable. Yeah, maybe not track racing, not that distance. I like the A to B. Like you're going somewhere, like there is an end point to the race rather than going round and round a track. Yeah. Also, that can't be good for anybody's hips for that long. I'd have to change direction.
They normally change direction after 4
hours. Oh, there we go. Oh, do they actually?
Yeah.
There we go.
I don't know about every race, but the races that I've seen that are like that sort of distance, 24-hour races, they change every 4 hours.
Just going back to Glasgow to Edinburgh there, Emma, with the 2023, and you said that was the one that you enjoyed the most. Yeah. How soon after that, did you have the twins? You mentioned they were born prematurely, and how did you build towards that?
So they were born in June 2021, and we spoke about this earlier about sort of like what drives you into running again. It was actually my in-law family had arranged a charity bike swim, which is lock swim and run from Gretna Green to John O'Groats in 2022. And my part of the, not a race, but the team relay was doing the 50k run, which I did. And I think that inspired me to then go sort of fully into kind of the ultra distance. And that's kind of where the 2023 Edinburgh to Glasgow to Edinburgh, sorry, came about, because I was like, oh, well, I've done 50k and I actually felt quite good. What could I do just to push that a little bit further? But yeah, the twins, Campbell and Hamish, were born at 28 weeks and spent 3 months in hospital. And then they had further, within further, in and out of hospital. It was quite a hard time. So on that point of view, it allowed me and my husband and the rest of the family to have a focus, and also to give back to, a charity, Simpson Special Care Babies, that gave us so much, for the charity that supports Edinburgh Royal Infirmary at the Simpsons unit there. So we managed to raise about 26,000 for the unit. So, that was a huge, it was just amazing to be able to give that back. And I still am heavily involved. I'm a trustee now as well for the charity, so helping other people fundraise and giving advice, that kind of thing. You know, I'll get the emails in and I'll sort of do a bit of that on the sidelines because I've so much time.
Thank you so much for sharing that, and you really are an inspiration.
Thanks. But I think that's what, you know, when the ultra distances do come in, I think people do have a story, and it really is quite fascinating. And that's kind of, you know, I had a goal, and then it was like, well, what's my next goal? I felt like I sort of was sparked interest that, and then I returned to Glasgow and Edinburgh the year after in 2024. I upped my game for that year. I did Manchester to Liverpool, I did the Forth Ultra, and I did Glasgow to Edinburgh, and I did St Magnus Marathon, and I did 3 halves, and I had a really successful year. Did the podium in most of my events. And then we spoke about, you know, when as a runner, when things are really high and you're doing so well, to suddenly, oh, I'm now getting ill, I'm a wee bit injured, I'm tired, I'm now working more than I was. And it's having to have a little look at where things need to make maybe a wee bit of a change now. And like 2024 was great, and 2025 has not been. And I'm quite happy to sit here and say that for those that are listening, that you know, it looked great last year. I'm like, oh, look at this Emma Coffey, isn't she doing a great job? But I'm now battling through the kind of like, oh, maybe the lows, you know, how I can get back on form again. Is there a distance that I think I want to maybe sort of put my interests in? Do I need to up my fueling? You know, there's so many questions. If you want to keep doing 80k weeks, you know, am I doing it properly? It's probably my question for myself.
Do you think that it was 80k weeks, or just the amount of racing that you did? What contributed to the success in that year? And do you think that if you were to do shorter races during that year, you would have been faster at them as well?
I think a lot of it's to do with mental high as well. Like, you know, you see you'd successfully do well in one race, so why you should be able to do it in the next. So I think from that point of view, I was seeing things going really, really well. And then in 2025, I became quite unwell at the start of the year. I think what we believe I had was just a horrendous case of flu/COVID, which I never really got when it was going about, because we were isolating because of the twins. So we were there also moving house. I had resigned from my job and didn't have a job to go into. And then my husband was diagnosed with a health scare and underwent surgery. And it just, you know, everything just seemed to not fall apart, but not everything was going quite how I would have liked to have gone. So the summer then was me spent caring for my husband, making sure the twins and my eldest were okay, you know, trying to get a house sorted, trying to get a new job. You know, we'd made a massive commitment of moving. And don't get me wrong, we're now in, what are we now? October, and things are starting to, I mean, there's been a lot going on in 25, and I actually think there's just been a lot going on that missing that key training block. I think I was out for about 12 weeks, and then yeah, the training sort of went to one side, and then mentally you're juggling so many balls that you're like, you have to keep a focus on something, and nothing was suddenly in my control. And I'm hoping towards the end of the year we might be doing a bit better, but we'll see.
I think one thing that we always say in the podcast, or to each other anyway, it's family first. The running, podcast, whatever else, it can wait. Family first.
Yeah, and I think we've just had, as 2025, there's just been a lot of life changes, and I think you just sometimes have to sit back and say, but that's okay.
Yeah.
You know, running's going nowhere, but the kids, well, the boys and my husband is priority, and then, you know, me trying to get some sort of income was also a priority. Be pleased to know I did get a job in the end. But it is one of those things that it's quite easy to get into your own head, isn't it? That focus on that one race, but that one race is going to be there next year.
And I think a lot of listeners will take great comfort in that, especially for those that are struggling through just life in general at the moment? You know, as you say, with work, family, life stresses, moving house in itself is meant to be one of life's biggest stresses, that alone. So
you're settling kids into a new environment. That like Rue was starting a new class, like he moved in the middle of primary one, and then the twins then moved into their new nursery as well. So then you're just worried about them. You're doing that weird like mum thing, aren't you? Like, have you made any friends? Have you spoken to anybody? you're like, hold back, Emma. Like, I think we're okay. But it also, you know, when you said about, you talk about your projects, events, volunteering as well. Interestingly enough, I don't, although I do my charity bits and pieces, I don't necessarily volunteer when it comes to running or the events because they just take up so much time. However, I will run, if I'm running a race, I might choose to run under a charity t-shirt, so just to raise awareness. So I tend to go between the Simpsons Special Care Babies and Team Alexis Rose as well. So those are kind of the two charity t-shirts that if I'm like, oh, for, you know, I'm not running for a series and I'm not running in my Orkney vest, then I'll take on a charity t-shirt just to pop that awareness, and it usually just highlights, you know, just questions or just to relate to people that come and say hi when you're at the events.
Yeah. And I think that's valuable in itself, as you say, like raising awareness for the charities, because as you've mentioned there yourself, you can only spread yourself so thin. Volunteering, and as you're saying, you're raising awareness for your charities. So I think you're doing pretty well.
Thanks very much. But I also, there's fun sides of running. Like, I think when you do get, and we spoke about the normal person, which I do believe I am the normal person, when you've got that somebody that comes through your inbox and they want to potentially have you as an ambassador or to work with them, collaborate, that's been quite exciting as well. So one of your questions that you'd put to me was, you know, your fueling nutrition, which is so big in ultra running. And I, you know, had Tom Coughlin, I think that's how you pronounce his last name, Tom nutritionist, and he did a lot of my stuff for my ultra running, where I actually sort of met up with him online. We looked at everything where I can get that nutrition in, you know, with your Trek bars, your Soaring, bananas, and I'm all for solid foods. But when your distance becomes less, you're then looking at your gels and your carbs that maybe that you need to have that on you for the marathon distances and less. And I think, you know, it's been quite interesting to see what people actually do, and I quite like a gel, to be quite honest. I'm probably the very few that do. It doesn't worry me, but I quite liked how you know, to see the ambassadors that can open doors to small companies and businesses. And I think you're familiar with him yourself, is Stephen Mackay, who is doing the Highland Fuel Nutrition. So that's kind of something that's looking kind of exciting for me. It gives me something different to work on as well, being like, oh, I'm really excited. It's, you know, made in Scotland, well, made in the UK. It's, you know, Scottish branding. He's, you know, into the ultra running scene himself. And I think when it comes to him looking for people that can take out his brand and see where he's going with it, and using people that are on his doorstep and using them within races, it's, you're kind of a community, but you're doing your best to promote other people where you possibly can. And I think that's what I feel that's quite exciting with him at the moment. And his carb drink mix, Bare Fuel, and then his next mix, Clear Fuel, which I'll be very excited to try and give him some honest feedback on. He did say he liked honest feedback. So I think that's just some exciting products that, you know, as runners, we can sort of dive into and kind of build your collaboration.
With your nutritionist working on your race fueling, do they work on outside the races as well, just your diet generally overall?
No, they just did it during my races of what I could be doing. But I'm that annoying person that I'll send him an Instagram and he'll just be forced to tell me what I should be doing without the payment going his way. Bless him. But yeah, and actually that's another thing I'll be interested to highlight. And I'm sitting here saying I'm doing all these things. I'm actually also really bad at it. You know, when you're not fueling for a race and you're just doing your day-to-day and you maybe don't have that lunch break and you're not taking those those snacks. I think, and then you're going to Stirling University track, and just doing a 12 1K sessions at 3:55, that kind of pacing. It's like, oh, is she doing it? And my coach has been he's been quite good at telling me where I need to be doing the fueling. And nutritionist then had said, I sent him a question about, well, how much should I roughly be taking? And it was a lot. It wasn't massively under, but it was definitely under, we'll put it that way. And I think a quick fix and a top tip for anybody is that shake in the afternoon, that 400, 500 calories. I tend to take protein, or a huel is quite useful.
That is a good tip. I'm interested in that because my diet at the minute, Emma, personally, is absolutely shocking. I am not unknown to just have a block of feta cheese of an evening.
No, I mean, and the thing is, I go and get something to eat, and then one of the boys will come through. The next thing, I'm feeding the 500, and they've stolen all my food. It's like you have to be a secret eater in your own home.
Was the nutritionist that you talked to, was that Highland Fuel that were the nutritionists, or was that a separate thing?
Separate. So Highland Fuel is definitely something that's new, collaborative, and I'm quite excited. And Tom is a nutritionist who I worked with for ultra running only, and when I was doing the races. But I think in a way it's been really useful. I think in a way it's useful. Just because you're doing less distances doesn't mean that you shouldn't be fueling appropriately. And that's, in all honesty, that's where I was going wrong. I was like, oh, well, I'm just off to the track for an hour and a half. And it's a case of, no, you still need a gel, and you still need to make sure that you're fueling appropriately beforehand. So it's just carving out that time of what you're doing and making sure your kids don't steal your food.
I think a lot of the time it's not just the races distance wise, because a lot of people that are doing, say, a half marathon are doing like 50 miles a week, and the people doing an ultra are doing less than that. So it balances that out. It's not just about the race distance, it's how much effort that your body is putting in over the whole time period.
Yeah, and like you have your easy days or easy runs, or your rest day, where your rest day might be where you're fueling for your big run the next day, and it's you're always having to think, like, as a week, what am I needing for that week, which hopefully I'm getting better at.
Your nutrition for, say, a half marathon versus an ultra, how does that differ?
So my half ones are a lot. It's just purely on gels and Cliff Blocks. I'm quite happy to do that. I'll take a gel 5 minutes before I start, and then I'll do a gel 45 minutes in, and then 30 minutes. It's quite kind of what I like and what my body suits. And I would still carb load as well before my half marathon. And when it comes, but if I'm being honest, I always, because I know I'm not very good at getting the food in, I'll always start eating a lot more. I know they say 48 hours, but I do try to start like during that week of the race, trying to get that used to it. Whereas your ultra running, your body can go between your gels, your shakes, your carbs, your solids. You've got more of a wider choice than you would with your halves. And I think with your halves, you need to be in a way, how they do that. Oh, I feel fine now. It's like, well, you might feel fine now, but in 15 minutes, you might not feel fine. So it is sticking to that timings, even if you think you feel fine. But I think that comes down to experience.
Yeah. And I was going to ask as well, Emma, with the fueling, when you mentioned that, is that something you've trained your stomach for as well in training runs, or have you always been quite good at taking it on?
Training runs, yeah, I will. Anything longer than an hour, if I'm out, I will be taking gels with me. Yeah. And I tend to go between a Cliff Block and a gel just to kind of help that stomach as well.
And the next question that we have, I don't know if it'll be the same answer as your favourite race, but what do you feel is your biggest running achievement?
But for this one, it doesn't need to be a race. It can just be, like you said, you did charity work. It could be that.
That was probably in the early days. That was definitely a running achievement. in a way, I feel they're all kind of like minor achievements. They've all been, oh, I've done quite well, and it's quite nice to see them. I would say probably the biggest achievement would be winning Manchester to Liverpool. You know, going through the tape at the end and getting the interviews and the photos. It is quite fun. I wouldn't lie and say it's not. I think that's achievement. To win a race is a major achievement. And although, as I said earlier, I've podiumed on a few, I managed to win the 4th Ultra as well. But for something as big as GB Ultras to come in that finishing line, that would be great. So I think that was probably my biggest achievement, is winning Manchester to Liverpool. And I was on my own for, you know, the whole thing. There was nobody around me. At one point, I was following a guy who I thought was in the lead, but I wear glasses, and he had a vest on. I was like, well, he's obviously part of the running. So I was kind of following him along. And then I noticed that he turned off. And then I noticed he's not even in the race. He was just a jogger. And I looked around me, and all the red ribbon, because they tie the red tape, as I'm sure you know, Nikki, as well, along the sides. And I realised there was no red tape left. I was like, oh no. Like, I didn't even know if I was going the right way. So I panic phoned my husband and my brother-in-law, who were crewing me, and excuse me, and I was like, I'm lost. I have no idea where I am, and I think I'm nearly finished. Like, I can't just run another 10k again. And they're on the phone, they're like, Emma, you just run in a straight line. Like, you don't need to be lost. So they quickly popped in on the Google Maps of where I should be. And I wasn't lost. I was in the right direction. And you say I did say I'm bad for navigation. In the 4th Ultra, I actually went off in two different directions twice before I went off. I just missed the tape, because you get in such the zone. So yeah, that was Manchester to Liverpool, like following a random runner who was not even part of the race, and then missing like the tape. So some people thought that was obviously fun, to take the tape off the trees as we got into Liverpool. And we finished the race, and it was like, oh great, an interview, really good fun. And jumped in the car. I was like, oh, it's not even that far away, Manchester to Liverpool. Like, the run felt like such a long time. The car journey was nothing. And my husband and brother-in-law were like, yeah, you can take a train to major cities as well, Emma. I was like, yeah, you don't have to run them all.
And how long did it take you to run from Manchester to Liverpool?
Oh, I can't even remember. Was it 8 hours? I'm actually now quickly going on to my Instagram to find that result. Bear with me.
But I mean, even just to win it is incredible.
Sorry, it wasn't 8 hours at all. It was 7 hours, 15 minutes. There we go.
Wow.
So even then, I'm not very good on my own times. Yeah, people just assume that you know your times, but I'm somebody that I just don't. And then obviously you got your Dan Bentley photos at the end. I mean, that's definitely worth running an ultra for. And he's just a fantastic, like, he spends time with you. And I think I posted this the other day on my Instagram, that he is happy for the person that comes first to the person that just finishes the race, because actually everybody there is there for a different reason. And I liked when I was competing in the Island Games that they were saying the people that finished, which we would say is last, they actually reinvented it, which I felt, and was like, and used the terminology of closing the race, closing the field, which I also like, because for many of us that were competing, we were just doing full-time jobs, kids, families, and you know, we may have not got the times that we did, but the training still went into those races, and to be commented on or to have that well done, so it was hugely satisfying, you know, having your family and friends out there. It was great. So I quite enjoyed closing the field, and that is something I've taken back to my own classroom when I'm teaching my children about closing the field, or you know, still participating, you know, at the same time.
I think that's important to teach the kids that as well, because you're still doing the same distance.
The Great Glen Ultra is for William to Inverness, and you're not the last finisher. You're not the, what was it you said, the final finisher. you are
Close
you're
in
the final
race.
finisher. That's what,
Mhm.
and you actually get a prize, the Lanterne Rouge, to celebrate. You finished it. You were out there the longest on the course. So
Yeah, and that's actually harder than the person that finished first.
Yeah.
You know, it's 100%. So for Manchester, yes, I was finished first, got a really good position overall as well. But actually, the hardest part of that day was the people that were finishing in the dark.
Yeah.
The speaking about that race, I think it was the second and third time I've won that race. I actually stayed behind and celebrated, like cheered everybody in, because the last person, they deserve it as much as.
Yeah.
There was more people there at the end than there was when the first person went through.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think that's what's something that, you know, a few friends had commented on. They're like, oh, but there wasn't that many people there. And it's really hard. It's a bit backwards. It's like, oh, it's because I was finished first.
I was finished too early.
I finished too early. I'm sorry. I finished too early, so there wasn't that many people there. But you're right. And then you have that like lovely hour or so where you get like a whole flurry of people that come in, that kind of 9-10 hour mark where there's, you know, the crew people that crewed others, and they're in there, or any charities that are staying back, and there might be a few more photographers that'll stay in, because that's where the majority of your runners come in. I mean, the male that finishes first, he's got no chance. Like, nobody's cross patting him on the back as he comes in.
Right, back on the question set. We've got a couple of deeper questions, and the next one is, why do you run? You might have already answered this, but I'll ask it again.
Yeah, I think it's just, you know, that privilege, isn't it? Team Alexis Rose speaks about the privilege of being able to run, and that, you know, they do so much within the community and Stirling. And, you know, my story with them goes a little bit further back. I actually taught the older son when Alexis Rose obviously passed away. So it was fast forward 15 years, met at a running event, and that's what I speak about, the community and people collaborating and using contacts. So there's that privilege. And obviously then I had premature twins, and one of my twins contracted meningitis, not as severe, but enough to be hospitalised and, you know, have treatment. And I think it's a privilege to run, but also in a way for me that's been through, you know, hard times and trauma, it allows that mental space for you to be able to go out the door, enjoy a breath of fresh air. You know, we're in a hospital for a long time, and just say, do you know what? If babies can fight this, I can go for a run.
Actually,
striking on heartstrings now.
No, you know what? And I've been doing the podcast with Mike nearly a year now. We're coming up for, and genuinely, I think that's the best answer we've had on the podcast since we've been doing it together. Of why do you run?
Thanks.
So thank you for that.
It's just important, and then, you know, it's trying to put life into perspective. When you think you're having really bad days, is your day that bad?
Mm-hmm.
You know, so get those trainers on and off you go.
I'm inspired now, and it's pitch black outside.
You'll be going to get your head torch.
Don't forget that. No, it'll be cool. So when we talk about the running, what do you know what you think about when you run?
Oh my goodness, I could sort of change the world during my running and my thoughts. Yeah, I know some people are like, oh, I think about nothing and everything. Oh, I think about everything. Oh, absolutely. My best plans for my teaching lessons come when I go out for a run. If I'm being honest, I've got time to process, think about my groupings, my differentiation, what I'm going to do. So I do tend to think about my job and how I can arrange, because I've got, you know, I've got my own little people that I look after at home, but then I've got a class full of individual little people as well. And I enjoy being creative and having that time away from doing that. And so something as, you know, as my job, to something very simple about what dinners we're having for the week, or what have the boys got coming up. I do occasionally listen to podcasts. Obviously yourselves. I listen to running podcasts, which my friends are like, so you go out for a run and you listen to a running podcast. Yes, that's exactly what I do. Just again, people get inspiration, and I think it's changed. In the early days, I used to listen to a lot of like twin podcasts, parenting podcasts, winning podcasts, and now I'm listening to purely running podcasts. I'll throw in some teaching in there, but even just some, even, dare I say the word, some triathlons. there she goes again.
I think we know where this midlife crisis is heading.
I think we do indeed, yeah. Wait till I hit 40, eh? You might have me
I
back
think-
on in a few years.
I think they might be classed as enablers, Nikki.
We're after running community if you should do something.
Your friends that say you go for a run and listen to running podcasts, that's exactly what I was doing this morning at 5:30 in the dark with my head torch on. But what you can say to them is, do they sit and watch TV and watch programs like Gogglebox where they're sitting watching somebody else watch TV?
Well, I don't know. I'll have to ask them.
Yeah.
I hope they're not, actually.
Because I know which I would prefer to do, and it's not watching somebody else watch TV.
No, so no, it's quite nice. I do like it, but actually most of the time I do run with nothing. You know, I'm quite happy. Beautiful part of the world that you know, it's just enjoying the scenery really, and just getting that wee sort of calming headspace before you get home and you get shouted at, "Mom," or "I'm hungry," which if I had a pound every time somebody said I'm hungry.
Side question about you said you're a teacher and you teach small people.
Yeah.
What kind of age group-ish, if you don't mind?
So at the moment I had a primary 3 last year. I've had a primary 5. I'm currently in a primary 5, and we have got a shelf to encourage, you know, trophies or medals, certificates, and I popped my trophies up there too, just to show the children, you know, celebrate success, whether it's with charity work or musical or sporting, just anything. And it was quite funny because obviously the teacher's like, "Ooh, look at Emma and look at Mrs. Coffey and all her running." And I was like, to be all honest, it actually is just a lot. It's just taking up space in my own house. So then I was like, "Oh, it's taking up space," and I was like,
I've
"Oh,
got
Lord,
so many of them."
I know, it was completely digging a hole, and I was like, "Okay, they're just here, and that's the end of conversation."
Ma, if you want, I'll take one off your hands and I'll practice my speech in front of the mirror.
Well, do you know what? And honestly, I do get some parents as well that'll be like, "Oh, such and so, they want to go to the athletics club." And it's quite nice when you've got, especially, I am a bit of an advocate for female in sports. And, you know, the irony of that is that I have 3 boys, but yes, I'm probably more of a promoter of girls in sports. And, you know, when you get that feedback from a parent and you're like, "Oh, such and such has said that they want to go to athletics, or they want to do a race, or they suddenly started using my treadmill," was one comment, "it was my fault." And I'm like, "Oh, I'm really sorry."
Sorry,
So,
not sorry.
Sorry, not sorry. And also, you know, you're working with young people, and they, you know, at times, especially at different year groups, they do take your word for gospel. So you always have to take things with consideration. So this is what I'm very careful to be like, I'm going for a run, but I'm putting this food into my body. And I think that's really important. If you are working with young people, you know, you're kind of sharing the whole story. And at the end of the day, you kind of accidentally become a role model.
Yeah.
So it's ensuring that, you know, that you're sort of practicing what you preach.
My question about the teaching small people was actually totally different subject. You're obviously walking around the classroom all day. Do you know how many steps you do a day?
No. And I am a walk around the classroom actually as well. Like I tend to move around the classroom. No, I've never done the step count. The step count increases the smaller the children are. That is definitely one thing. And then the older they are, they tend not to follow you around a classroom and try and like touch your tights or touch your new shoes. It's always amusing.
And the next question on the set was supposed to be for Nikki, but I'm taking it.
Okay.
Do you have a dream race, or have you got a bucket list?
So that's a good question, because there's a few things. Like, I'm definitely somebody that's like, oh, I'll just go and do that. If I had the opportunity, I would absolutely love to do like the Comrades race. I think that would be a massive bucket list, to really go out there and do something that's quite unique and special. And then something a bit closer to home, and I'm still swithering, what I'm going to do, is for Glasgow to Edinburgh. I've come third twice, and both times I completed the race. It would be nice to have, that first place on my shelf for that. And another one would be, I've had Good for Age for London for quite a number of years, and it's crazy. I've just had not been able to do it, simply because too short notice, not enough childcare, kind of want to do it properly. It would be lovely to be able to line up at London Marathon and get it under championship. That would be an aim for 2027. Whether that's feasible, I like to think that is possible, but I don't know if they changed all the times.
Yeah.
So a women's marathon time would be a sub 3:10.
Yeah, I know somebody that had worked hard to get their qualifying time down. They changed the time, and it meant that they were 30 seconds. They had been 4 minutes, I think, under, and they changed it by 4.5 or something like that. And it meant that they were 30 seconds over the time, and they'd obviously been focusing on the time that had originally been set. So,
that was you, Mike, wasn't it?
No, I've got no interest in doing London. So
yeah, I think, when they did the change, and as I said earlier about that lows, I really thought that 2025 would be where I kind of got that time with my halves and my marathon running, and it just hasn't transpired. But as I said earlier, races come and go. Like, it's not going anywhere. I'll just try again next year and just put that on the back burner. And I think that's important to know, that it's okay, it's fine, I'll just try. So then everybody's like, my mum's like, so why didn't you go for that Good for Age place again? I was like, sorry, I've got 3 kids and a job. It just didn't happen, Mum, but thanks.
Sorry, I've got a life.
Yeah.
Yeah, you mentioned earlier about the different types of races that you like to do, and London is just, it's got no appeal to me. I've done races which I think might suit you. Like, I've done a race along a bridge where you go for 2 miles, you turn around and come back, so you can't get lost. There is no navigation.
Yeah.
You have to do 200 miles, but you don't get lost. So, but London, I would rather be out in the hills. So it's just whatever suits you.
I know it is true though. It's like, you've got a runner and people say, oh, you're a runner, but there's so many varieties of runners. Yeah. And I think that's what it does make it exciting, because you've got your podcast, so you've got like, Rowan on the other week, or different people that come on and say bits of life stories that would happily get lost in the Pentlands, for a number of hours, where it's my absolute idea. Thank you. Yeah, running races. And what's the other race that you do, the tunnel?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, intriguing that one is, and slightly terrifying at the same time. So there's a race for everybody out there, isn't there?
There is, yeah. But well, the tunnel race, I know that somebody did actually sit down because they were so tired. When they got back up, they went in the wrong direction. So technically, they got lost. So.
And oh well, wouldn't do then. No. So yeah, the sort of the races would be good for, like, it's those kind of bucket list races. It's like, oh, what if I could come first? Or, oh, it'd be good to have a championship. They're all those little ideas that people put in your heads as well. You're like, oh, but what can I realistically do, and what do I want to train for? It would be, fantastic to do sort of a unique race. And I think really, and I mentioned 100 miler. So, and then I mentioned a triathlon as well, didn't I? So I've got a lot to get through.
It's good to dream big.
Dream big, yeah. I mean, your triathlon could just be a sprint one. It's fine. It doesn't need to be anything major. But then you've got the danger, once you start small, you just get bigger. It's like, I started a 5K, and the next thing you know, you're doing ultra marathons.
You might do a sprint triathlon and enjoy it, and end up doing an Ironman. So.
Yeah, so
But
no, that's kind of the idea. I think I do have a race coming up, though. I have Valencia in December. So that's what I've been kind of building towards, and we'll see how that goes. So I did the Octorarder. You'll laugh at me for Naki. The Octorarder was training races. I wasn't allowed to go any faster. It was like, no, it's a training race. I was like, okay, I think I can do a training race. So we did that back to back. It was good fun. And actually, I think it's really important to highlight. And the reason why I wanted to do it was because I wasn't having a very good year. It was nice to go back to the basics, and where it actually starts for most people is that community, that environment, meeting people. And I think that's what's important about these community events, is that it's the start for many people. And once people have, and to come back to that event and enjoy it was really good.
Octorarder's fantastic for that. They've actually got the chili race coming up a week on Saturday, which I'm doing. It's my first one back after injury. So
are you excited?
Slightly. I'm more excited after speaking to you on this podcast than I was before you came on.
Okay, so, well, I'm glad I've done something this evening.
Well, you have 100% inspired me, because I think you do get into a bit of a slump, especially when you're coming. I've never been injured before this, but it's been a bit of a weird one. So I'm looking more forward to it now. But as you say, it's more for the social side of it, and it's just such good fun just to see other people that you
never see, or people that follow you on social media, and you're like, oh, you're a real person. Yeah, I like putting that, I went up to the Inverness half at the start of the year, and that was because I was meant to be running, got injured. I was not injured, sorry, I was unwell, injured. Just everything was wrong. So I went to support my husband and my brother, and it's like, oh, hi Emma, and you're like, I know that I should know you, but please just remind me of who you actually are, and then I can start piecing things together. And I'm very open with that as well. It's like, don't pretend. I just think, I recognize your name, but just fill me in for a little bit, and we'll get there. So it was nice sort of seeing a few people up in Inverness sort of saying hi, and then the question was like, you're here but you're not running. Yes, that is right. And then getting into the conversation of the reasons why. But it was good to see. So yeah, this year again, Inverness was meant to run, didn't run it. Island Games I ran, but not what the time I wanted. Injured in Edinburgh. Goodness, I forget the name of the race. Edinburgh Marathon Festival, that's it. Was going for a big time there, and within a few K in, I was like, oh my goodness, something's gone. And I was so stubborn. So a few people were like, why didn't you just stop and leave the race? I was like, I couldn't. My stuff was all transported at the finish line, and I don't carry my phone when I run because I'm meant to be racing. So I had to kind of hobble along. The time was still okay, but it wasn't what I was looking for. So that was, mental to some people why you would keep running. So yeah.
And now back to the philosophical questions, and we've got to say we're flattered with this question. I've listened to 2 other podcasts, and they've imitated, stolen, whatever you want to say, our question.
Okay.
Is there anybody fictional, not living or not anymore, that you would love to have a run with?
Yeah, there's actually 2. I'd love to be part of the training group for the Ingebrigtsens back in the day. Don't you think that would have been really exciting? What was going on in their training vlog, and how they sort of competed within each other as a family. And I think that's probably because I've got 3 boys, and one of the twins just loves being able to try and beat the eldest, and it's that kind of that family competition. So I think that would be quite interesting to see how their training block work, and what was the chemistry, the communication like. And then on a selfish point of view, I actually really think Paula Radcliffe, I know it, to some people it might be obvious, but she was top of her game when there was you know, there a lot of stuff that we know now didn't. It was pure grit and determination, and obviously good training. But I listened to a podcast of Paula Radcliffe, and I just thought it was really interesting to know that she was told that she actually wasn't that good at running. You know, she was really, really, really good, but she didn't have the spark. You know, when you have people that are brilliant, but one has a spark and one doesn't. So I felt that she's worked incredibly hard to get that marathon time when she did it with, I mean, did she have fueling strategies? Did she have carbon shoes? You know, all those little bits and pieces. So that would be my two people, would be Paula Radcliffe and the Inga Britsons, their setup. That would just be fascinating.
Yeah, I think Paula Radcliffe, did she not have a funny running posture where she leaned to the side or something like that, which
she nods her head.
Yeah, where she shouldn't have been good, but she was.
Yeah, mental. So I think, yeah, from that point of view. But then I think, you know, athletics these days, you look at the Diamond League, it's getting a bit flashier. There's bigger personalities on the screen. You can see people are taking a wee bit more of an interest. It's becoming a bit more accessible to people as well. It's on TV. And I think, you know, that keeps maybe the younger generation that are more interested in people that actually want to go and watch it and see it happen. And you know, we'll sit and watch the Diamond League. And if, in fact, my boys really like the stick thingy. That's their favourite. And they like, it's just hilarious what they call as a name. So obviously the javelin, they seem to think that's absolutely fascinating. But also the kind of the jumping event. So even though it's not necessarily the rowing, it's running, sorry, it's your track events. And watching that, and I won't lie, I am one of those teachers that when we pop in resilience or determination, I will go to sports videos to show the children. I mean, my poor class.
So if the boys call javelin stick thingy, I was thinking a pole vault. So what's they call pole vault?
It's a stick thingy as well. Sorry, I should have said. Yeah, it's a stick thingy and the pole vault. But their preference is the pole vault. They really, really think it's amazing. I mean, it is quite, I don't know, it must be through the eyes of a 6 and 4 year olds that what on earth they're doing. Yeah, stick thingy, javelin and pole vault.
Yeah. Other question, again about the boys. When they are of a certain age, whether that's teenager or whatever age, would you want them to run? And if so, what distance would you want them to compete at?
So out the three of them, Hamish is I've got the three, sorry, she said Rory, Campbell and Hamish. Hamish is really into running, and I mean from such a young age, and he looks like he could be potentially quite not a bad sprinter. So it would be good to see him. He wants to join the athletics club, so that's already been. I had to disappoint him and say you're just a touch too young yet. But he will come down onto the athletics track with me sometimes, and he enjoys doing his own wee runs. I encourage running. I think as a parent, because I'm interested, yes, of course, but then that's a selfish view. It'd be like, it makes my life easier if I'm running, they want to run too. But at this age, I actually really want them to do a lot more team sports and bring in that social communication, camaraderie that comes with the team sports. Although I know within the athletics community, I think that team grows as maybe when you're a bit older with your community, and you can see it from that point of view. And yeah, it would be good to see one of them, if not all three, succeed in something. Whether what that is, I don't know. But you know, whether that stays or not. So you've got Hamish, who wants to go to athletics club, Campbell, who wants to go to biking club, and Rue, my eldest, he's already doing football, rugby, tennis, get that coordination in, and the twins also do gymnastics. Actually, that's a good thing from parenting point of view. Anybody that's listening, is actually gymnastics. It's a fantastic thing to get your child involved in at such an early age. And my physio husband also says this, because it brings in so much with balance, coordination, movement, that is, you know, the starting block of any sports. It's making sure that you're aware of how your body moves. So the gymnastics is really important. But when the twins were obviously prem, that was one thing that we were told by the neonatal physios, was to get any preemie babies, you know, in, because obviously some of them, they didn't completely develop their core in the womb, so the purposeful movements weren't developed, so therefore they did quite like flat quite a lot. So in that respect, gymnastics is just a great foundation for any sports that you want to get your child involved.
And just one more question, Emma, just to round off the podcast. You say you have an event in December. Is there anything else you have booked into 2026?
No, I have left it very open at the moment because, as you can tell, I'm not quite sure what I want to go and do. So it's been left open. So watch this space.
Definitely look forward to it.
See what random distance I can come up with, eh?
Absolutely.
Well, Emma, it's been a great chat, and from me is thank you for coming on, and thank you, Nikki, for being Nikki, and goodbye.
Thanks,
very
Emma.
much. Speak to you later. Bye.